Welcome back to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I am the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. In this segment of the show, we've always done something educational for our viewers. We've done surveyors, appraisers, we've done commercial real estate brokers, a whole range of different people who are involved in the real estate communities. But the people that are on the ground level in what is happening in the marketplace are our realtors. And I have a very experienced realtor here with me today who's been my guest numerous times over the years, who'll be able to give us a good perspective on this funny marketplace we're in right now. Bill Callahan.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah.
Always enjoy being your guest.
So why don't we just share with our viewers a little bit of how you ended up in the real estate business?
37 years ago.
A lot of things happened.
A lot of things happened. I left the sales job at Knapp Shoe Company. Things were changing there. And my father was a sole proprietor, had second generation. My father joined his father, my grandfather, in 52. And so this was 1987, July 17th, I believe it was. I showed up for work. And it was a whole different dynamic because you don't get paid unless you're doing something.
Right.
And but it was a slow start. But after a couple of years, I got into it, and he was very good. He was a great mentor to have your own father helping you through the trials and tribulation. The market was good until 1990. We had a little recession, but we learned from all those changes in the market. So it's been a very successful career. I've been very happy.
So over those 37 years, getting a little off track for
Yeah.
what's going on in the marketplace, but you saw a number of technology changes
Ooh,
in how you do your job.
wow. Have we? Started out with a book, piece of paper. When I started, we didn't even have a copy machine. And when we burned up the first one, then we had to get another one. My father was pretty upset. And then he was the one to get a fax machine. And John, to think about it today, I was thinking about this the other day when I was bringing my laptop to work. The generations of computers we've had and phones and electronic signatures. We used to drive to Middleborough to meet somebody to sign contracts and things. Now it's electronic, and if somebody doesn't have it, we still get together and put the pen to the paper, but it's rare.
It's amazing to me how fast that moves between buyers and sellers and their representatives.
Closings used to be 90 days from start to finish, and it would be almost 45 to 60 to get a bank commitment. Now they're typically 45 days. 60 days is a long period of time. And it puts a lot of pressure on the lender and the underwriters because they still have to gather information. But I'll tell you, it moves pretty fast.
Right. And on our end, 80% of our documents get recorded over the internet.
Yeah.
And that changed our world. So we used to see realtors coming in with their customers all the time into the, doing the closing room. You're bringing in bottles of wine and all that kind of stuff. Now all that's gone too.
I remember going to the closings at the old registry in Plymouth.
Yeah.
In the basement there.
Yes. Yes.
And the one in Taunton too, in that basement.
Right.
Like brick walls all around you. Yeah.
Now you can do it.
And if you had a closing, if there was two closings in the same day, you had to get there early, go upstairs, get in line, get it on record, and then the people selling a house would be buying a house.
Right.
Boy, oh boy.
Quite crazy.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about our current marketplace. We were kind of joking around earlier that a lot of times, different times the marketplace changes. It gets a name.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this one really hasn't come to the point of identifying the period that we're in.
Yeah.
But we're in a different period than we were even 2 years ago.
Correct. So sometimes the names have to do with what the economy is doing. And, this is the result of, inflationary rates and trying to bring those down. But we've definitely had a change in the market where we've gone from lower than 3% to over 7%, just under 8%. And it keeps fluctuating a little bit. actually dipped a couple of weeks ago, and people were locking in.
Mhm.
And we were getting notices now, you're on the clock, because you have sometimes 30, 45 days, up to 2 months to hold that rate. Imagine locking in at, say, 7.5 and
Yeah,
thinking,
right.
wow, geez,
Well,
I'm lucky.
I remember 14 years
Yeah.
ago,
Yeah. My first one was 13 3/4.
Yeah.
Jeez, wow. So, and those are market change. And I just had a conversation with a young man earlier when we were waiting outside. And I told him to stay engaged. He had been looking for real estate.
Mhm.
Now he's kind of taking some time off. But this is a time where you really, if you're not buying today, you still want to stay in the market, study the market, know what things sell for. You know, have an idea of the value in the area that you like, because it's not going to stay at 7.5. It might go to 6.5, which is an opportunity again. You know, you and I have seen the rates change from
Mhm.
14
Sure.
to 3.
Right.
So I tell everybody, especially the younger generation, don't get discouraged. Stay engaged.
Now, are more than one person, is more than one person bidding on a property now?
It still happens. I'm closing on a house in Brockton on Birchview Ave the end of this month. And a house across the street sold like 2 weeks before us. So it kind of set the value
Mhm.
on the street. And ours is a little nicer. And we had one young lady come in, an agent, bring a buyer in, and they wouldn't come off the price. They wouldn't come off for 420, right? We're 425. So then we said goodbye to her, and she said, "No, we're staying there." So I got a second buyer at 425 and a third buyer at 430. And the second buyer at 425 was actually stronger, more money down,
Mhm.
and kind of an easier loan. And they came up to 430, so 5,000 over ask.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, but it's not 25 people in line like there were a few years ago.
No, there's not 25, but you know, in Brockton and certainly any other town, there's a threshold where if it's at a certain price, that might be considered a first-time buyer. And this couple, they are first-time buyers. So that creates a little bit of a line, people trying to get into the market. You know?
So let's talk about the current environment, and what would your experience advice be to someone looking, one of our viewers looking to buy a home?
Definitely, I said stay engaged earlier and know the market, but also don't quit on the financing end. You know, if you have a lender that you're working with, and this gentleman did, a longtime family friend, you know, stay in touch with that lender every 3 months. You know, how am I doing? What could I afford today?
Mhm.
Can you send me an updated pre-approval letter? And then another 3 or 4 months down the road, call them again and say, how's the market? What's the interest rates? Send me another pre-approval letter. I don't care if you don't use it. Keep it.
Yeah.
And now, so you always know where you are in the market, what you can afford, and then you're watching the sales and see, because there's going to be a property that's going to sell lower than,
Mhm.
you know, 500. It might go for 400 because the people, you know, I'm tired. I want to get rid of the house. So those two things are critical. Just stay engaged, know the market, know what you can afford.
And are buyers still waiving home inspection?
That's a good question. Really, they are. I have another closing in Brockton on Rangeley. They waived the inspection. Now the house was in very, you know, it was in good shape. You can walk through a house and get a sense that
Mhm. Right.
people have done some things. They waived the home inspection,
Mhm.
and they were over asking. Then this house on Birchview, they did not waive the home inspection, and we've spent almost $5,000 fixing. Yeah, which is unfortunate, but
Well,
it is what it is.
a lot of people have to upgrade to their taste. You know?
Well, this was a lot of kind of deferred things that
Okay.
should have been taken. And the gentleman that owns is elderly and in assisted care, so some things came up, termites. You
Sure.
know, you don't know those things ahead of time.
So let's talk about sellers. We're having a problem creating inventory in the
Yeah,
market, or building up the inventory that you normally would have.
right.
It keeps the flow of real estate going. That's why we're in a little of the doldrums right now.
Yes.
What would your advice be to people who are on the edge about selling and what they should do to prepare for it?
Well, I have a client in Brockton that wants to sell in Brockton, buy in Easton to a smaller smaller home. And he's got his house. I've been through his house, so it's ready to go. But he's got to wait till he finds what he's looking for.
Okay.
So that's tough.
So that the sellers, potential sellers, are slow because they can't find what they're going to do next after they
Correct.
sell.
He's looking at 255 and older communities.
Okay.
And so he knows exactly what he wants, which is good. But he's not going to sell his house and live somewhere else until he can get to that spot. And so it's a little bit more work. And you know, that's the nature of the beast. You know, not everything's just cake, you know, like it was with 3% rates and everybody's flying around.
So I know the governor has a bond bill out there for housing.
Yeah.
They're really looking to try to increase housing.
Correct.
I happen to think a lot of the changes would be marginal, but that's my take.
Yeah.
To create units, so kind of
Right.
open up the dam a little bit, including the possibility of making the ability to add on to your house
Correct.
as in-laws.
Accessory dwelling.
Accessory dwellings,
Right.
easier. Any of these programs that you followed going to
Yeah.
increase housing that you think?
It's going to help for sure. The accessory dwelling is a big deal because it's going to be a statewide thing. You can't zone against it.
Mm-hmm.
And some towns have specifically said, no, you can't do that. And the state is going to have a mandated minimum. You know, like in East Bridgewater, I think it could only be 600 square feet, which is pretty hard to have an accessory unit.
Right.
You know, you might need 900 to 1,000 square feet.
Right, sure.
To get, and typically it's a bedroom, a living room, kitchen, bathroom. That's what the in-law apartment is all set up for. And but that's coming, 100%. And it's going to be in every city and town. It's going to be mandated by the state that you have to allow it. And the second thing is that every city and town, or not, I shouldn't say every city and town, but any city and town that hosts a railroad station or abuts a town that hosts a railroad station has to submit a housing plan, multifamily housing plan, like apartments or condos, with an affordable rate factor to it, affordable rental amount, like 20 to 25% of the units in the complex. So even, I don't know if you read about in the Globe this week, Brookline has finally come around and submitted
I saw
the
that.
plan.
Yeah.
Middleborough is like dragging their feet. Braintree's dragging their feet. But this is going to be, there's going to be an axe. You're going to lose state funds. You're going to be in jeopardy of losing state funds if you don't submit a plan to the state.
Anybody that drives around the different communities can see which communities are taking advantage of that
That's correct.
because they're already under construction.
They're going to be, you have to submit plans to the state of what you're going to do, where it's going to be. That's a good thing. There was an article in Raynham. Raynham is trying to stop a 40B project, but we desperately need apartments.
Yeah.
You know, you think of how expensive Boston is, and they're extending the train to New Bedford and Fall River. People live in those units; they'll take the train, and they
enjoy the lifestyle of that community.
Yeah, and but Boston needs people to work in the hospitals and the restaurants and the hotels. They certainly can't live in Boston.
So let's talk about. We have a few minutes left. Let's talk about your perspective, again on the ground, of where we're going to be going through the calendar year.
Yes,
we're changing the weather a little bit, and then it's a long look ahead. But what's going to happen in next year's spring market?
Yeah. Well, I think right now it's very quiet, and it'll be quiet till the middle of January, so to speak. People aren't going to be doing much until the middle of January. So, and it's going to. My sense is the spring market's going to start a little slow, and if the rates recede a little bit, the inflation seems to be coming down, and if the rates, like I said, if they get to 6, people are going to say, "Wow, well, you know, let's go." And then maybe the inventory will start to increase a little bit. If we get a little more inventory, we'll have a good market.
So I know you're a great promoter of the brand of being a realtor.
Yes.
And we got a few minutes left. I think it's very important that the public knows how you and fellow realtors
Yes.
value your profession.
It's the largest single professional association in the state, in the United States of America. And one of our key components, which is, you see the R that I wear, is we subscribe to a code of ethics, which is, and we're 100 years old. We're a 100-year-old organization. And we obviously have continuing education over and above what the state requires. But the big thing is a code of ethics. So we're professionals in our business.
Right. Thank you very much, Jeff, for
Yeah.
sharing that. I know we always end up with that.
I'd like to end up with that.
Well, thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Great to see you again.
Yeah.
I wish you luck. as
Happy
you go.
Thanksgiving
And
to you and
happy
your
Thanksgiving.
family.
And I may not see you till Christmas. We usually run into each other
Yeah.
at some of the Christmas events.
Yeah, with our buddies.
Yeah. Right. Thanks, Bill.
My pleasure.